Okay, so today I'm going to talk really quickly about 4-piece Sentry, why I believe it is, second best behind Reclaimer, and possibly the best depending on how you use it, the best gear set in the game, even with the addition of the patch 1.3 content. The mixing and matching 4-piece Sentry is still just a fantastic gear set when used properly. It can help you do the hardest content in the game at a much easier, level of difficulty than it should be, because the bonuses are just so strong. So I'm going to talk about each one of my pieces of gear, why I chose them, what I've rolled on them. I'm going to talk about the guns I'm using right now and the talents I'm running, and then I'm going to show some gameplay of a heroic underground mission, a 2-phase heroic underground mission, and how the content progresses and what I'm using the set for and the way I'm using the set. So specifically referring to the 4-piece bonus of Sentry's Call, you're going to find that the 2-piece and the 3-piece took a giant hit in 1.3, okay? 10% headshot damage, that was nerfed from 30%, and 10% damage to elites was nerfed from 20%. You have to run 5 pieces in order to get those, those decreased portions back. That is not worth it. You're going to want to run 2-piece gear sets with your 4-piece Sentry, but the 4-piece bonus remained unchanged, and that is why I'm going to be doing this review on the set, why I'm doing the build, and why I still believe it is a fantastic gear set. So it's important to note with the Sentry's Call marking mechanic, the 15% that stacks 3 times does not add up to 45%. In fact, it adds up to somewhere between 52 and 53%. This is because 15% is applied to your base damage, and then that is taken again, and the next time you mark the target, you take 15% of that increased base damage, okay? And this happens 3 times. So you shoot the first shot, you increase your damage by 15%. You shoot the second shot, you increase that already increased damage by 15%, and the third shot does the same thing. It increases the damage that's already been increased and is a higher number than you originally had on your base damage by 15%, and as a result you get between 7 and 8% more damage than you would if it was just increasing your overall base damage from the initial shot 3 times. If that's a little bit confusing, I'm sorry, but the most important thing to note is that it's not 45%, it's about 52, between 52 and 53%. So you're getting a little bit extra damage there. Okay, so now I'm going to talk about each individual piece of gear and why I have them. I'm running 2-piece Final Measure to protect from sticky bombers, A, from grenadiers, especially in underground content, B, and from flamethrowers in the Dark Zone, C. Those are the 3 most dangerous things that I've found in the game right now. The reticles on the grenadiers is very short, so if you do get hit, even clipped by the outside edge, you probably will go down if you don't have the exotic damage resilience. Flamethrowers basically look at you and you die, so it's really important to have something there. And then sticky bombers, I just don't want them to ever touch me again because, before the patch, I just got so frustrated by getting dropped that now, when I don't die to them, it's a very, fulfilling feeling. So let's go in and talk about my chest piece. Just really quickly, it rolls armor as a major attribute. You always want to roll armor as a major attribute on your chest piece and at least 2 or 3 other gear pieces. That's going to allow you to hit the 75% armor cap very easily. Okay? Now, the second major attribute is health. That's horrible, okay? I had to re-roll my major attribute to armor. That's the reason why I still have health on this piece. Normally, I would roll that off immediately. That's a very bad major attribute. You want to roll exotic damage resilience on your chest piece. That's the best one to get. Alternatively to that, you can roll something else, but that is, pound for pound, the best major attribute you can put on your chest piece, especially if you're pairing it with 2-piece Final Measure. Just as a side note really quickly, exotic damage resilience is not a linear bonus. Anything above 50%, it starts to be more and more effective even with 1%. The percentages become more potent the higher you go. So if you can have even 1 piece of gear with exotic damage resilience on top of your Final Measure, 2-piece, that's going to make you much more resilient to things like flamethrowers, grenades, and sticky bombs. So moving on to my backpack, I have a major attribute of armor, a minor attribute of ammo capacity, that could be something else easily, and skill attributes are just whatever you prefer. Pulse duration, pulse critical hit, anything like that. First aid self-heal, first aid ally heal, I believe are very important, but that's really user's choice on what you want. Also important to note, this is a 240 gear piece. There's much room for improvement with your build with this concept if you were to get all 268s and things like that. So I rolled firearms on this. I have a mod in it that gives me skill power. Now, pound for pound, skill power is the best thing to roll on mods. You can now max out your mitigation through armor without using any mods whatsoever to do that. Okay? If you roll high enough attributes, major attributes on all your gear of armor, you now have enough to max out at 75% and free yourself up with all of your mods to run something like skill power or critical hit chance or anything like that. So it's important to do that. That's one very easy way to make yourself relatively stronger after the patch. Moving on down to my sentry pieces, I'm going to talk about my mask. On every build that I run now, I typically roll skill power as a major attribute on my mask and my backpack. So right here you can see on my mask, it's a stamina mask with almost 5,000 skill power. And then over here on my final measure backpack, this is a major attribute of armor to help me hit the cap, but this could also be skill power. And on the backpack and the mask specifically, skill power is super, super potent. So looking back at the mask, I then have a minor attribute, blind and death resistance. You could augment that with something like shock or burn or anything that you're going to find more helpful to you personally and your playstyle, or maybe in the DZ or something like that. But in the end, you know, this is a solid mask for my purposes. The mod in it is stamina, again, with skill power, 1500. This is going to help me achieve a higher level of skill power, a more potent heal, a more effective pulse, things like that. So overall it increases the effectiveness of the build. Moving on to the gloves, this is one of my 268 pieces. Again, this one couldn't be improved all that much, but you know, most of the other gear can be. Critical hit damage, that's nice. These are firearms gloves, which are going to help me boost my damage, so I'm not, you know, one-dimensional. I'm not just a tank. I am not actually that tanky on this build, but 404 toughness is, you know, plenty to survive whatever I need to survive. Sticky bomb damage should be something else, but, you know, for the purposes of showing 4-piece sentry, it will function. Critical hit chance, damage to elites. Now, damage to elites is more effective in a PvE scenario than assault rifle damage or SMG damage or something like that. You're getting a little bit of extra damage on your bullets in the case of rolling assault rifle damage or SMG damage, but in the end, if you're fighting, you know, NPCs, damage to elites is much, much, much more effective. From a PvP standpoint, you're going to want to re-roll that to something like SMG damage or just whatever base damage for the gun type that you're using is, because damage to elites wouldn't be a potent stat in PvP. So it's really up to you which one you're going to prioritize. Maybe even have 2 sets of gloves if you can find them. One of them has base gun damage on it of the type of your choice, and the other has damage to elites for farming, you know, NPCs and things like that. Going down to my holster, 3-stat holster. This is a 240, could easily be improved basically by over 100 on all 3 main stats, which would make this build much more potent. Again, it's not a min-max build. There's much more potential in this build. This is just a conceptual video about how you can go about getting the most out of this gear set. Major attribute of armor, this is allowing me to reach the armor cap. Very good. Skill attribute could be better, but it'll work. Moving on to the pads. This is going to be one of your primary pieces of gear to increase your damage output, okay? Major attribute, I did not need to roll armor because of my very high alternative armor rolls, but you can roll armor on this in exchange for the backpack, for instance. If you want to prioritize skill power over, you know, damage from your primary gun, just switch it up, roll armor on your pads, and then keep skill power on your backpack. This would boost me up to like 28,000 skill power quite easily, maybe even 29. If I were to roll skill power on my backpack alternatively to armor and then roll armor here, but I would decrease my primary and secondary damage by quite a bit. So critical hit damage here is going to make my assault rifle and my sniper quite effective, so I like that. The minor attributes, anything that's effective, you know, burn resistance and shock resistance, I like a lot. I hate getting shocked, I hate getting burned, things like that. So you can, you know, augment that with bleed or something like that if you prefer. First aid ally heal, that's nice when in a group, but first aid self heal is going to be, you know, more for personal survivability. So that's all 4 of my sentry pieces. Moving on to my guns, I have this this G36 enhanced with brutal, sustained, and focused. Now, personally, I think that assault rifles are the best for killing NPC content, and they also have an equal place in PvP. With the nerf to SMGs, I think assault rifles are just as good in every scenario and better in all PvE content. Now, brutal is a great roll. Sustained, I like because in, you know, when killing NPCs, increasing your health is going to be super helpful. And focused is what I'm going to roll off. Okay, so I actually have not rolled this gun. There is a lot of room for improvement. Right now, 244 primary DPS on the meter is inflated. In most fights, I'm not going to have the focus bonus active. I'll roll that off for something like deadly, anything like that. And in the end, I'm going to be much stronger for it. But it's important to note that there is much room for improvement with this build. Now, the most important gun when using 4-piece Sentry is an M1A. Okay, the M1A is the best sniper in the game, hands down. It's no contest, even with the reticle bloom nerf that they enacted in 1.3. I feel like that really only hit PC users. It didn't really affect console users. That's just my point of view. But at the same time, you know, if I'm wrong about that, feel free to post a comment. Now, the SOCOM M1A, it has a great rate of fire. It has great base damage, competitive base damage with any other sniper type. It has Deadly, Swift, and Prepared on it. I'm still in the process of re-rolling this gun. I'm going to re-roll Swift, hopefully to Brutal, fingers crossed, but you know, I've already re-rolled a few times and haven't had any luck. This is a 204. Again, there's much room for improvement. If you get a 229 version with better talents, you can probably start to hit even higher than I do in the clip that I'm going to show. But even then, this is competitive, even with a 204 and not the perfect talents. So it's very important to use an M1A for the marking mechanic with the sentries. Now moving over to my talents and abilities, I'm running Pulse. You don't really need to run that. You can run whatever you feel, a stun, flashbang, anything like that, a turret for CC, and then I run Heal with Overdose just to make sure I have a survival mechanic at my disposal. My skill power allows my heal to be quite effective, so that's nice as well. Moving on to talents, I run Triage, especially whenever I'm in a squad. That's very nice. 15% cooldowns. I always run that. That's kind of a courtesy thing. If you're not running that in a squad, it can kind of mess up other people's rotations of skills and they don't have them active at all times. So I always try to run that unless I'm with a very well communicating squad of my own, you know, members of upper echelon, and then we'll try alternative things. But typically I run Triage in all situations where I'm playing with people I don't know. Critical save, this will make you tankier, especially when you're popping a medkit in low health, and is a very potent combination with on the move. This is pretty much what I'm going to be using all times, on the move and critical save. That's a great combo that I use in almost every one of my builds. And then the fourth talent is tech support. This has been fixed so that it now interacts with Pulse in the right way. So when you kill, let's say you pulse 10 targets and then you kill 4 of them, you're actually going to increase your skill duration on the other ones, the pulse duration on the other ones, by 40% as you have killed the 4 targets. So it's really good for chaining kills together and keeping bonuses active that you want to keep active. So that's about it for the build description, you know, talking about all the different pieces. I hope I covered everything. If I missed anything or you have any questions, feel free to post down in the comments below and I'll address them as quickly as possible. I'm going to throw it over to some gameplay and talk over it and just show, you know, the functionality of the build, you know, the way I use it to play, what I do right and wrong, and hopefully give some good information on that. Okay, so we're in a heroic 2-phase mission. We're going to be fighting level 35 enemies. This is the hardest content in the underground aside from, you know, the modifiers. And as you can see, I can triple mark targets very, very easily. I just triple stacked that target immediately and then moved on to shooting it with my G36. You can triple stack targets for your teammates, but not only that, with this build, I actually get totally destroyed here. I didn't see him jump down. That was completely my fault. But you can triple mark targets for your teammates really easily, and then they will be doing 52% increased damage. Or you can triple mark targets and then swap to your own primary weapon and then start to deal damage to them as well. You're not just a mechanically marking person. You aren't just marking targets for your teammates. You're also marking targets for yourself. As you can see, I can triple mark targets, but I'm also doing, you know, 800, 700,000 damage per shot easily. And that's not only, I'm not just marking them with my pistol or something like that. The reason I'm using an M1A is that while marking them, I'm actually doing significant damage. Swapping over to my G36, I make very quick work of some of the enemies that normally would be some of the hardest in the game. 35 enemies are the hardest ones, and as you can see, we're absolutely mowing through them. There are alternative builds where you're just running firearms and, you know, an SMG or things like that can mow through just as quickly. But this build in particular has a lot of range to it. You know, if something is very far away, I can still hit them, you know, and deal plenty of damage with my M1A. I can still mark for my entire team. I can still pulse and things like that and increase the duration, you know, just using my M1A. As you can see, I mostly use just my M1A, hitting well over 1 million crits there and dropping that shotgunner, you know, like butter. He's just gone. I really, really like the build. I think there's a lot of potential for improvement, especially with the gear that I'm running right now. There's a lot of different things you can change about the build that will make it better. But for what I have right now, it's still super functional and allows me to complete heroic content quite easily. Yeah, there's not that much else to say. You know, again, I'm hitting over 1 million, dropping LMGs, you know, fairly easily. My aim isn't the best, you know, before you go and say, oh, you know, my build's so much better, I do so much better at heroics and things like that. I'm sure many people do. I'm not claiming to be the best at this game. I'm just claiming to have found things that work quite well. Let's put it that way. I'm sure there are more optimized methods out there for farming. I know that people have better builds. And if you do have something that you want to talk about, you know, even get feedback on or just, you know, show off with, please feel free to comment below. We recently had to move our channel. I say it in pretty much every video, and I'll probably give it a rest fairly soon, but I just want to, you know, make people aware. We had to move our channel because of some really bad things. We were treated very badly by AdSense and Google. As far as I know, there's nothing that can ever be done about it, but we were, you know, it was pretty horrendous what happened. And I want to say thank you to all of our subscribers who moved, you know, who came over to this new channel with us. It really, really means a lot. And if you can help spread the word on the old channel, if you ever see any of our videos up from the old channel, you know, people that don't know that we've moved over, just let them know. You know, sharing of the videos, putting them in playlists and things like that on the new channel to increase exposure, that really means a lot. And thank you to anyone who's been doing it thus far. We need to get to 1,000 in order to partner with one of the networks. We're reviewing networks right now, and we already, on our old channel, we already are well over 1,000, so we could have partnered already. A couple networks actually reached out to us to partner, but we can't because of what Google and AdSense did to us. So it's a really unfortunate situation, but some of the kind words and the positive feedback I got from subscribers really is what kept me going through the process and motivated me to keep churning out content, to keep trying to be helpful, you know, give you guys as much as I can in terms of information on the division, builds, and things like that. So thank you again. It really means a lot. So we're progressing through this heroic mission quite quickly. It's not easy, I would say, but it's very doable. This is one of the worst ones. This is a critical infrastructure where you have to activate the generators. In terms of length, this is one of the longest possible underground missions. I get dropped here, and it's just me being dumb, I think. Yeah, I get dropped by a sniper of all things, but I did triple stack him, and as you can see, my teammate was able to come in and just absolutely annihilate him and then pick me up because the triple stacks are a massive bonus to damage. So in terms of critical infrastructure, you're not going to get these all the time, and oftentimes we will actually reset and not do them if we get critical infrastructure. They take a long time, there's a lot of different waves of enemies, and they're kind of boring. I like the ones where you can, you know, blitz through the content, kill a boss, and it just feels like, you know, you're rushing through and getting a reward for relatively little effort, and it just feels like you're beating the system, and it's a really nice thing. But at the same time, if you like, you know, longer, slugged out, grueling content, feel free to do critical infrastructure. They're my least favorite, though, personally. As you can see, you know, someone with better aim would be able to make mincemeat of anything that charged up. The M1A is hands down the best sniper in the game, even with the nerf. I'm going to do a separate video talking about snipers and why the M1A, above all, is the best one in the game, and I don't really think that there's anything that they're going to do to change that ever. So you're always going to want to find an M1A, whether it's, you know, first wave or SOCOM or anything like that. Just pick up an M1A that has good talents and get that to be one of your primary guns. It's good in PvP, it's good in PvE. Again, I don't have the PvP content right now to show you, but it does hold up and function well. You can hip fire, you can hard scope, and the rate of fire is what's going to make it possible to land headshots. They don't even have to be critical strikes, but once you get those bonuses up on NPCs or on players, they're going to start to fall a lot faster. Let's see, yeah, as you can see, an LMG there, triple stacking, you know, the damage just, you can see it rising a huge amount. With smart cover active, you're going to start to do huge amounts of damage, and you're going to blaze through the content. 1.4 million there. That's a really nice crit to have. Someone with brutal on their gun, this sniper does not even have brutal. Okay, someone with the optimal rolls can take this build in particular and just absolutely crush the new content. I'm not talking like, you know, it's a fairly big challenge or, you know, it's fairly easy. I'm talking crush the new content. If you roll brutal and deadly on your M1A and run a build like this with all 268s, with some customization and with some lucky rolls, you're going to be able to absolutely breeze through all of the new content, get the best gear in the game, and it's really not going to take that much effort as long as you have, you know, micro skill, you know, aim management and things like that. My aim is not that good. I mean, I'm on console. I'm trying to improve every day. In fact, I oftentimes make an effort to go into the firing range and hit different targets as fast as I can, to judge, to hit those, to play that actual mini game and see how many I can get. I've gotten up to 14 before, but I would really prefer to be getting up to 20, you know, just hitting them first shot every time. And it's actually a really good way to practice if you want to try that out. Upping your sensitivity is going to help you react faster once you get used to it, things like that too. And overall, like, I know there's people that are better, you know, they can aim quicker, they can make better use of the M1A, but I find that it's a very good gun regardless of how my aim, you know, may suffer in certain instances. I'm not bad at the game, but I'm not the best either. So I find that the M1A does turn out to be a gun that is good for players, you know, of all skill levels, and is the most effective thing you can use, especially when paired with Sentry. Through this entire dungeon, we were actually looking for chests. I don't think we found any. And I'll probably cut it short after one phase because I don't really want to ramble on. I've pretty much talked about everything that I can talk about in terms of, you know, the build and what you can do to improve it and how it functions. But, you know, we couldn't find a chest or anything like that. Normally in Heroics you are going to find one. I did get dropped there. That was just me face tanking, something I shouldn't be doing. With 400,000 toughness, you are pretty much okay. You're not going to get, really killed too quickly, but at the same time, you can't face tank. This isn't like, patch 1.2. You can't be, running through the content face tanking everything. It just doesn't work. You will get dropped unless you're on a significantly higher damage build than I am, in which case you might be able to get through them before they kill you. And if you can get a stagger, especially if you can get a headshot with a stagger mechanic that does proc on them, you'll be able to get through them very quickly and very easily without taking damage yourself. I can't always get the staggers off, so I try to stay in cover, especially with my teammate who's running a very strong smart cover. But as you can see, up near 1 million on the critical hits, especially with headshots, 969,000, and we're just shredding through these level 35 NPCs. This is a great build in terms of farming the Dark Zone as well. You can position yourself on the outside of the pit or something like that, fire in, and you can progressively mark the targets that are getting close to your allies who are over by the stairs or something like that. And once a target is triple stacked, even with just 2 of your other teammates focusing them, that target's going to just melt away like nothing. It's very easy to triple stack with the M1A as well. There are some people that prefer to use a shotgun for marking, even at longer ranges, because the amount of pellets, even if you get a shot that's near the head, and if you quick scope in with the aim assist on the Xbox One, it can do a very good job of bringing you right over to the head, and then you fire a shot and get the mark off. I don't personally do that. I prefer the M1A, just because, the single bullet, massive damage. But the shotgun is also a viable way. So if you have a build that utilizes a shotgun for marking, please go ahead and share that. I'm still trying to put together a great shotgun build, and I haven't had that much luck. So if you have one that functions well, please go ahead and share that. Tell me what it is. Tell me how you built it in the comment section. We're growing this back to the level our previous channel was at, in terms of discussion and over the overall community. And I really want to say thank you to everyone participating in the discussions and things like that, giving feedback and stuff like that at all times. It's really helpful. I mean, it doesn't have to be positive feedback either. If you like the content, let me know. But if you think it's terrible and I don't know what I'm talking about and I'm very misinformed, let me know that as well. Everything helps me improve. And when I improve, that means I can make better content, which in turn, hopefully, it's my, my aspiration that will help other players, do better when they're playing the Division, making builds, dealing with all these different permutations and combinations of gear sets and skills and talents and different things. Overall, I can't say that this is my favorite build. I can say that I like the build a lot, and I think it's one of the most effective builds that I've made, but I don't think it's my favorite. It's extremely linear, and it does, feel exactly like patch 1.1 and 1.2. It hasn't really used any of the new mechanics to mix things up, but it did maintain its viability, especially when you think about the fact that, two-piece final measure, you want to run these alternative two-piece gear sets, and with the nerf to Sentry and Striker, specifically the 3-2-1 combo is gone. It's not nearly as viable as it was. And, and running a 5-piece gear set, it's really going to only leave the door open to use something like, let's say, the Reckless Chest Piece or the Savage Gloves. It's not going to open you up to have this exotic damage resilience. So the Sentry's Call, with the 4-piece bonus having been untouched, is going to open up the door for you to, to use 2-piece Final Measure or 2-piece Blind or 2-piece Hunter's Faith, even if you really want to prioritize something like marksman rifle damage. But Hunter's Faith isn't really going to be a great gear set because 2-piece Blind, if you think about it, is also a bonus for your entire team as well. So if you're running 2-piece Hunter's Faith, I would probably encourage you to use 2-piece Blind instead. But at the same time, that's going to wrap it up for this build. There, you can use whatever 2-piece gear sets you want. I'm going to call it here. This is only the first of 2 phases, but that's plenty of gameplay to show how the build functions, and I've talked about it enough. So thank you for watching. Thanks to our supporters who moved over to this new channel. It means a lot. Help spread the word that we moved. Help spread the word that we're still going to pump out good content. And as always, have a nice day.